Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Travel Talk with Selling Travel. We are joined today by Jim Eastwood, who is the Global Sales Director at Travel Counsellors. Jim, hello, how are you?
Really well, Charlotte, and thank you very much for having us on.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. So, Jim, we've just survived Blue Monday. In case there's anyone out there who doesn't know what that is, could you briefly explain?
Well, listen, Blue Monday has been coined as the most difficult time of the year for people. It comes after Christmas. It comes in the long month of January, since a lot of spend in Christmas, and I believe it's associated with people's perceived mental well-being. And of course, that's not only topical, but it's so critically important that we're mindful of that and we support that in every way. But yeah, it's good to be aware. We're much more open, aren't we, about how we talk about mental well-being. I don't probably fully agree with giving the day a label, but if it's done in a positive way, which I think it is, it does shine a light on an important area, and you want everyone to get the support that they need, especially at that time.
Yeah. And I mean, according to you guys, it is actually a positive thing in terms of holiday bookings. And you're saying that you're expecting lots of bookings this week, despite it being, January and the week of Blue Monday. Do you have any stats to support this and any information around why this might be the case?
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick build up, but last year was exceptional for us and above pre-pandemic levels. We turned over sales globally of 800 million, and our financial year ends at the end of October. So November, super strong, December, strong comparatively to any periods, both the previous year and pre-pandemic. And in January, you're expecting peaks, but all indicators were showing that peaks were going to come very early, very thick and very fast, and they have. So to put that in context, halfway through the month, which we are now, just past, we've had 6 of our top 10 sales days ever in our 28-year history.
Wow.
That's one point. Another aspect is last Friday was our biggest sales day ever, on Friday the 13th. So we thought there was some irony with that, right? Lucky for some.
That is very funny.
and we celebrated that, and we were grateful to have enjoyed a sales day where we achieved 5.35 million in sales in one day.
Wow.
And then Blue Monday comes around, and we had a package of support available for our travel counselors, our colleagues, and we publicise it with customers around the importance of the day and the assets and access to support that we provide as a business. But then we did a sales of 4.7 million on the day. And why that's significant was it was our biggest ever Monday ever, and it happened to be on Blue Monday. And it sounds as if the hits keep on coming, and I'm not being crass. I'm being very grateful and respectful to the fact that travel and travel counsellors are enjoying such resurgent demand. But that was backed up with another 4.7 million pound day on Tuesday, and then yesterday, on a sleepy Wednesday, we now have beaten our biggest ever day ever, and we did just over 5.5 million in sales in one day. So very proud of what we've achieved. It's fairly exceptional, and hopefully they support the fact that on Blue Monday, when people are thinking about how they feel more, they remember how holidays, experiences, and travel makes them feel, and we've hopefully give them something to look forward to.
Absolutely. And massive congrats to you guys. Now, the buzzword of the moment is cost of living crisis. And obviously people are being squeezed from all sides. So I guess it's kind of almost surprising that people are still, pumping any money that they have left over into going away into holidays. Why do you think this is, and how can agents capitalize on that?
I think the demand is there for a few reasons. And you think about it, last January, so January is always a peak period for leisure travel sales, right? You've got to remember that a third of our business is corporate travel sales, but let's speak specifically about leisure. Last January, the first half of January was still dominated by Omicron. And then when people could book, there were still restrictions in place. So people were understandably tentative, even when booking further out. Now that dissipated as the year went on. Mm-hmm. But this January, as one TC said to me on email this morning, this is a proper January. And in many ways, it's an accelerated version of the proper January. So you can book anything and everything for near-term travel, medium term for this summer, longer term for winter and beyond, especially with what the cruise lines offer and your ability to book well into next year as well. So it's the first time that consumers, in a period where they're of the mindset to book travel, that they have got complete freedom and access to everything. Now, there's a cost of living crisis as a backdrop. There's increased travel prices to take into consideration as well. But even with those factors combined, people seem very reluctant to sacrifice their holiday, to sacrifice the ability to look forward to something. And we're even seeing new trends emerging that lots of travel businesses are reporting around multi-generational travel, bucket list travel. Because I think what the pandemic did was it created natural pent-up demand. A lot of that was satisfied last year. But now you've got even more choice, even more ability to book, and even more desire and urgency to do and have more experience as a wider family group, and to do those things that you've always wanted to do, in the fear maybe that at some point that flexibility and freedom might be taken away. God forbid.
Great, thank you. Yes, and some great trends there as well that agents can definitely use when they're selling, when they're thinking about what packages to put together. Can you talk a bit more about kind of what the key booking dates are going to be throughout January and maybe even beyond that?
So January has been famed for the Fridays being the big booking dates, and then month end. And in January 2020, right, which was an exceptional time for us as a business, but of course for all of travel and society in the mouth of the pandemic. The last Friday of the month fell on the 31st. And that naturally becomes the biggest day, the big crescendo point of January. What we're seeing now is things have started earlier. We're seeing no lessening in demand from customers. And we're seeing our biggest ever sales day yesterday on a quiet Wednesday, as I said, tongue in cheek. So we anticipate that Fridays will continue to be strong, but all indicators suggest that that the rest of the month should be strong. And don't forget, when I came into travel, 6-7 years ago, I was told all about January, but all indicators show as well that peaks has spread. It spread into December and out well into and across February as well from a leisure perspective. So can we keep this demand momentum and these big sales days throughout January into February? All indicators suggest that we can. I hope it's the same for all of travel. But it's truly exceptional. And maybe to finish with a tongue-in-cheek word that we use so frequently throughout the pandemic, it's unprecedented, but in a much more positive way, right?
Absolutely. Some very good news there, Jim, for everybody who's selling. But so, I mean, obviously people are still going to be looking for good deals because of the cost of living crisis, because people always love a bargain. Which destinations should agents be watching out for to get their clients' money in 2023 and why?
So this isn't a shameless plug on travel counsellors, but travel people sell the word, right? And travel counsellors sell the word. We're not in one particular niche area. So that makes it very broad, very diverse, and very interesting. And you'll always have massive demand for the US, for Spain, increasingly for Dubai and the Indian Ocean, for Southeast Asia, as that area has now opened up fully and still holds a great deal of appeal. And for Greece as a real winner that came out of the pandemic when it was a country that you could go to so often. So there's lots of short haul and long haul options for everyone, not to mention cruise and ski at the moment. But in terms of cost effectiveness, it's interesting because you're now starting to see places like Montenegro becoming popular as an alternative to Croatia. You see Portugal becoming more popular as potential alternative to some parts of other parts of the Med, for example. And South Africa, the strength of the rand and that beautiful country and an opportunity to go and enjoy safari and game reserves. And to name but a few, Jamaica, because the Caribbean was so popular during the pandemic. that Jamaica as an option in terms of cost effectiveness there as well. So there are also little mini trends from a value perspective. And you've got to remember that people's share of wallet in terms of I always take one holiday. It's actually increasing in some cases. We can see that with the demand for somewhere like Finland, which of course is related to Lapland. And we know that is not going to be someone's primary holiday. And it may not be top of the list in terms of value for money, but it's an experience that sort of can't be replicated. And you may do as a one-off, but people are also plumping for that as an option. So you can sift through all of what I said and hopefully find something for everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jim. And you touched on this throughout your answers, but are there any other travel trends that we should be looking out for in 2020, 2023, or even 24 that you'd like to talk a bit more about?
I suppose in terms of travel trends for 23 and 24, I mentioned earlier about multi-generational travel. So 23, you'll get multi-generational, you'll get bucket list, and you'll get experiential, and the desire for people to get really back into long haul again, right? Back into the US, back into Southeast Asia and Thailand, and to go to all these places, all these places that were, one, restricted, but two, were frequently traveled to pre-pandemic, right? So that'll happen in terms of destination, but in terms of actual trends, yeah, again, multi-generational as well. I think cruise has handled the pandemic really well in terms of how the perception there was around cruise at the start of the pandemic and how they have got really stringent measures in place now. But the entry price points on cruise in some cases are truly unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing an increased amount of cruise and people booking further out, and people who are going new to cruise probably enticed by that value for money as well. In 2024, people are thinking further out and booking further out. There are always places that become of interest to people. We can think of Japan, for example, and you can think of other destinations like that, which you'll maybe go to once and you want to experience fully, and you might take 2 to 3 weeks to enjoy. But I think the most marked rise has to be around the Indian Ocean, be Maldives or further out as Mauritius, and the gateway being Dubai. The Indian Ocean has just been so popular, and I can see that continuing into 23, because once you go to these places, they're the places that are Instagrammable. They're the places that you'll come home and say, you've got to see this place I went to in the Maldives, because it's the picture book of what travel is. You ask anyone to picture travel, they picture the white sand beach, the aquamarine water, the floating villas, and all that you get with that. And the Maldives, as well as other areas, have that in spades. So I think as the world has opened up, the world has also opened up the possibilities and potential to customers who never would have considered cruise, never would have considered traveling with their wider family, or may never have considered or thought that somewhere like the Maldives was prohibitive price-wise. Now all of these places are much more well-known and fueled by Instagram, and often much more accessible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jim. That was all super interesting. And there's some great information for agents to take away from what you said. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Great to get your insights, and take care.